As we begin, I just want to welcome you to Threads of Change, Empowering Social Works podcast. I am Roshane Bailey, and I am your host today. And I am delighted to have you join us on this transformative journey. And our mission is to inspire, equip social workers to be champions of change, advancing their careers, enhancing their communities, and enriching their lives. And today we'll be diving into a very engaging conversation with male social workers, advocates, and change makers who are exploring the challenges that we face. We'll be looking at that today. The victories that they can celebrate and the impact that they have been creating. But we are not just here to talk, we are here to take action. And together, let's build a community where voices are amplified, where learning is continuous, and where change is not just a possibility, but indeed it is a reality. So, whether you are a social worker or just someone passionate about making a difference in people's lives, Threads of Change is the podcast for you. And just to remind you, you may also view us or get more information on the UWI Social Work Unit via the Instagram handle at UWI Mona Social Work Unit. And as I hinted earlier, our discussion today will center on males in social work from a student's perspective primarily. But we do have a professional social worker with us who will be also giving us shedding some light on his own perspective. But our guests are here, and so I'll allow them to introduce themselves at this juncture, telling us their first names, well, their full names rather, their area of work, the institution or organization to which they attend, and any other pertinent information that they may have. And I'll start first and foremost with Peter Jean. I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly. So we'll start with Peter Jean. Just tell us a little about yourself, the area of work or the institution you attend, and any other pertinent information.
Okay, good morning, everyone. And yes, you were right. My name is, you pronounced it correctly.
All
So,
right.
as you said, Peter John Palmer, and I am a third year social work student at the University of the West Indies, and I'm currently interning at the Rise Life Management in downtown.
All right. Thank you, Peter Jean. Yes. So, Rashad, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself.
All right, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rashad Ford, third year social work student at the University of the West Indies, and I'm also the president of the UWI Social Work Students Association, currently interning at the National Council.
Okay. Thank you, Rashad. And we have two UWI students so far. Let's go to Denardo. You can introduce yourself to us, Denardo. Your mic is muted.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everybody is hearing me.
Yes.
My name is Denardo Mullins. I am presently a guidance counselor. I also worked at the Department of Correctional Services for quite some years, and I have been in the field of social work slightly for approximately 3 years and counting.
Okay. Wow. Interesting. Thank you, Denardo. Let's hear from Craig at this time.
Hello, everyone. My name is Craig Hewitt. I am a second year student at the Montego Bay Community College, and I did some voluntary service at Hague Primary and Infant School, and I helped provided, counseling sessions that promoted mental health and physical well-being, and also doing the needs assessment for the school year 2025.
Okay. Thank you, Craig. Very interesting. Very interesting. And finally, we have Jordan. You can go ahead, Jordan.
Good afternoon. My name is Jordan Matthew Wedderburn. I am starting the course for social work at Portmore Community College.
Yes.
I have been working for the Ministry of Labor and Social Security for almost close to 9 years.
Mm.
For almost close to 9 years, I work with social workers. I'm not quite a social worker, but I work with social workers.
So you're a social worker in training?
Yes, I'm in training basically.
Yes, yes. All right. Thank you so much, Jordan. And I want to thank all of you, gentlemen, for joining us today. I want to thank all who have joined us as well, those who are our other guests who are here as I speak with these panelists today. And I thank you again for joining us on Threads of Change, Empowering Social Workers podcast. And so I just want to start now by learning a bit more about what brought our guests to the field of social work. And I want to start with Leonardo, seeing that he is actually working in the field currently. Tell us what inspired you to choose the field of social work. And also tell us, how did your family and friends react when you told them that you would be going into social work? You're muted, Leonardo.
Oh, I thought it was on. Sorry about that. All right. First and foremost, social work field. I wouldn't say I chose it. It came looking for me
Yes.
and find me. So I started out in the field of engineering at first, and
Mhm.
that is where my interest was. And
Wow.
I set out on that course of becoming an electrical engineer.
Mhm.
And I remember when I went to UTech and I applied for the course as electrical for the course electrical engineer, and I was the one who is or was supposed to fund my schooling at the time. The
Mhm.
work and study had to come into place, and I they did not offer a part-time program. They
Yeah.
offered a full-time program in engineering. So therefore, I was told about the social work field, given the fact that I was in corrections at the time. I
Mhm.
did not know what it was all about. I did my research and I fell in love with it based on what I gathered from it. I was a bit reluctant at first. However, I went on that journey. And whilst on that journey, I started to get deeper and deeper in love with this profession. And it's around and being a Christian, it it points me to Christ, how he took care of the needs of people. And social work is not so much looking at it from so much of a profession point of view, but human care, care for the needs of your fellow man point of view. And that really allowed me to gain strength in pursuing this career. And so far, it has been very much rewarding
Yes, yes.
because not so much of the monetary reward, but so much of the gratitude that you get from persons who lives are being changed from your impact, the impact you made on different people's life. And as small as it is individually and collectively, and from a micro and macro and meso point perspective, you understand that when you reach one, it spills over into you wanting to reach more. So it is a fulfillment of me as a person to reach out and help my fellow man. So therefore, it is a passion for me, and I hold it dear to myself that as a social worker, it has been a fulfilling career, and I would implore anybody who is so much not so much decisive on the path that they want to go to give it a thought, to think about it and give it a try.
Yes, thanks,
Yes,
Leonardo. Very interesting, from engineering to social work. What a transition! But
I tell
a
you.
very interesting journey. Um, so how did your family and friends react when you told them about this?
All right. They did not so much understand this area of work,
Mm,
so I had to explain that to them.
okay.
However, being in the household that I was brought up in, it's a loving, supportive household. So therefore, it wasn't a challenge for me to pursue that line of career, because they would have uh, looked at life in such a
Mm-hmm.
way where one helped the other. And
Mm-hmm. Okay, a bit of breaking up there. Okay. All right. Seems Leonardo is having some connection issues. But in the meantime, let
I
me
was brought up in a community where the community or the village raised. Are you hearing me?
let me give our other guests an opportunity to answer that question. So let me go with Craig. What brought you to social work, and how did your friends and family react when you did? You can briefly answer that question for us.
Okay, so hello. So my inspiration for social work really started back in grade 11. At that point, I already knew that I want to work in healthcare, but I wasn't really sure of where I would fit in. I knew I wanted to help people on the different levels. I wanted to help people emotionally, mentally, psychologically. And as I started looking into different career paths when I was filling out my Montego Bay Community College application, I learned about the different levels of social work and social work as a career on the whole. And at first, I thought the micro level system would work, but it didn't fit well with me. So I thought the meso would work, but I still wanted to do more. I wanted to
Yeah.
have a greater impact. Then I learned about the macro level
Yes.
and working working with the society and structural changes through policy and advocacy and reform. I realized
Mm,
that this is exactly where I wanted to be, and this is exactly where I wanted to see myself in the future and on forth. And it clicked. I wanted to be a social worker who worked in macro level, involving in policy change, policy advocacy, and reform, creating a long-lasting change and meaningful. Another redefining moment of selecting this career was
mm-hmm.
when I was speaking to a fellow church member of mine, and I was having a conversation with them, and I spoke about the possible career paths that I was thinking about social work. And
Yeah.
they responded with wonderful choice. It fits
Mm-hmm.
your personality,
Wow.
your
Wow.
drive for impact and an impactful change that and a positive impact. It would really fit you. And they went on to say that God had placed you in this position for a reason. Me myself not knowing that reason at the time, but now being a second year student, I am seeing that where I'm able to make these systematic changes across the board. And at that point, I knew I'd made the right decision because I mean, God is my firm foundation. He is what my life and my faith is built on.
Okay. Very, very interesting. Thank you very much, Craig. And we're seeing where faith is playing a role in terms of the choice of social work. And so I'll just give quickly Peter John an opportunity as well as Rashad and Jordan. So Peter John, you may go ahead.
All
What brought
right.
you to
So I would say that it was before I knew I wanted to do it. I have a love for people, just seeing the interactions, hearing the reactions, seeing the variation of behaviors, and that tied into my love of psychology as well. This love tied into subconscious behaviors, and these are the actions that persons do without really recognizing, and it just captured me, and it was often something that I tried to do, and similar to Denard, it was a case where I was thinking of doing something like land surveying or architecture based on the practical uses of it. I mean, it makes sense. It's something that I can probably, make good money from while still having the time to do what I need to do. But as I pursued it, yeah, I realized that it wasn't fitting with what I wanted to do. I took a year off, and COVID came in. Ended up spending some time taking care of my grandmother and my sister because my people had to work, and then I ended up working at the Ministry of Education in the social work unit. Um, it wasn't where I started, but I eventually ended up there on rotation, and I got to experience what it was like. And prior to this, I was looking at courses, and psychology required a master's and further studies. And boy, I can't tell a lie, I wasn't looking for that at the time. At the time, I
Yes.
just wanted to get something, and I saw social work. I saw that it had psychology a part of it, and I was like, I can probably make this work. So I took it up. But as I engaged, within the field and the courses, I was very drawn in by the practical approach that it takes. And that same approach it really helped me, especially as I said, with the psychology, it's a lot of practical application of what you see,
Yes.
as opposed to the theories as well. So it really drew me. It was very interesting to me, and like I said, it tied into that love of people. So kind of held me there, still holding me.
All right. Thank you very much, Peter John. Rashad, over to you.
All right. So similarly to majority of the panelists, I never knew where I wanted to go after I finished high school. So I started doing a bit of research and I came across something called helping professions. I was like, what is this? So when I kept on reading, I saw social work. And so I went to one of my teachers at the time and they were like, same as I think Craig, they're like, yeah, this fits your personality, go for it. I never sure if I wasn't sure if I wanted to go for it. So I started out small. I went to the Antigua Bay Community College, and it was during the time of COVID, and it was rough, but I feel like my learning there really solidified my interest because I had really great lecturers there. I see one on the call right now, Mrs. Jones. Uh, them teaching the concepts and for them to get it across to me in the online space, I was like, all right, this seems like it's going to go somewhere.
Yes.
So then I applied to University of the West Indies. And when I came here, again, similar to Peter John, the practical approach that the course takes here, it was really what, again, even further solidified my interest because I'm going on practicum, I'm in different agencies, and I'm being exposed to more than what persons think social work is. So beyond the one-on-one approach that people think that you're going to be interacting with families or you're going to be taking away people's children, that's that's not where I saw myself. And I feel like the program here really opened my mind to the community aspect because that's where I see myself going, working with the homeless or, working with the homeless or persons with drug abuse problems, addiction. So yeah, that's it for me.
All right. Again, very interesting. And Rashad, as he said, is the president of the Social Work Students Association. And so he did not know what he would do, and now he's even the president of the Student Association. So that is a very good movement. And I too was a president of the Social Work Students Association, so I can attest to that. Let us hear from Jordan now. What brought you to social work as we conclude this portion of it?
All right. To be honest, it wasn't my first choice. It's something that I grew in, basically. Originally, I wanted to do business, of course, in business, but social work grew on me. The office grew on me. It became something that it came natural to me. So I just decided to put two and two together and venture out into it. But my family really didn't speak on anything like that. It's just my choice solely, really.
Okay.
But yeah, as I said, it just came natural to me in a way. And I just decided to just take it up and see where it goes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jordan. And very interesting. So for a number of you, it wasn't your first choice, but it seemed to now be the best choice. So thank you for those responses. I believe that our viewers are now more familiar with you and your journey to social work. So as we move along, I want to go to the whole matter of perception and stereotypes. So social work has traditionally been seen as a female-dominated field. And I'm curious, Denardo, let me go to you. I'm curious if you've ever in your practice encountered any stereotypes or assumptions about being a male in social work. So please share your thoughts on that.
All right. We oftentimes hear a number of things that has been said about being a social worker or who are social workers.
Yeah.
It is more so zeroing on the female. However, being a male social worker, so far, I haven't gotten any negative response from person. I think I guess what I have experienced so far, especially males, they are more comfortable speaking to a male about their situation. And yes, I've gotten that. So therefore, it has given me a perspective that males, for example, persons who does not have a male figure in their household, or they when they were growing up, they didn't have a male figure growing up, or a role model, a male role model. So therefore, they see it fit or find it they are more comfortable in speaking to me as the male. Because where I'm at, you have male and female playing the role as guidance counselor. However, I've seen where persons would come to the office and say, I would prefer to speak with the man. So therefore, I have seen where they are more comfortable, our persons are comfortable speaking with me. So I don't have any issues surrounding whether or not female is more effective or preferred in the role of social worker. No.
Okay, very, very, very interesting. Particularly the point you made about persons being more comfortable in some instances with speaking with men in terms of relaying certain information. So thank you, Leonardo, for that.
Yes.
Very, very interesting. Rashad, let me go to you now. As a student and male president of the UWI Social Work Students Association, how have your peers and instructors responded to your choice in social work? And have you encountered any assumptions or reactions about being a male in the field?
All right. So similarly to Mr. Denardo, there has been no negative assumption as a male in the space. As a matter of fact, I know that when you come into the university space, and same at the Montego Bay Community College, when you're a male and you have a passion for this type of profession, they try to nurture it as much as possible. So right
Yes.
now in my classes, we are very few. So it's just me, Peter John, and one other male. So that's 3 male compared to 20 other female. So
Yes.
the teachers really actually gravitate towards the male and nurturing them because it takes a lot. It takes a lot to come out of this space, the university space, and immerse yourself in the helping profession. I mean, we are more likely to have mental health issues because we know vicarious trauma and all of that. So we are taken under the wings of the lecturers and guided. Additionally, this does not mean that we get favoritism. It's more that they have higher expectations of the
Yes.
male. Because I remember when I just started my second year practicum, my supervisor looked at me and he said, "What? A male social worker? I expect a lot from you." And I worked so hard at that agency, twice as I won't say twice as much, but I had to prove myself and really and truly become a professional in the space right here. And it really was a bit challenging because it was nothing I was used to. But again, the expectation was set out from right there. And being the president of the student association, coupled with a student and all of that, expectation was really there, and it's always going to be there, leaving the university space and transitioning into the world of work.
Wow, wow. Very, very interesting as well, Rashad. And I can attest to that as well. Especially in the case where the class was primarily or predominantly female, with a few of us as males at the time. In fact, one of those males is here with us this today. Alfonso Blake, who he was a part of my batch. And so I want to thank him and thank the others for joining. But I want to also invite you. You may share your own thoughts in this regard. If you are male social workers, you may share your thoughts in this regard in the chat. And I guess a little later we will read. We'll allow some of those to be read. But thank you very much, Denada and Rashad. But let me move on to challenges and support. Social work does have its rewards, but it does have its challenges. And so, Craig, drawing on your practicum experience, because I see well, based on what you said earlier, you are engaged in practicum. And so, drawing on that experience, have you noted any unique challenges as a male in the profession?
Yes. So, um, as you said on practicum, I mean, as a guy in social work, there are definitely some challenges I will face. Persons often think of social work as a female profession,
Yes.
and some clients, especially women and children, might prefer working with female social workers, especially if they're dealing with sensitive issues like trauma. It can make it harder for them to connect to
Mm.
with them to gain their trust right away and build rapport. And
Yeah.
even isolation, I felt in my practicum because, as my peer just said, there were very limited male social workers around, to role model or to rely on and to say, hey, brethren, man to man, how do you go about this? What's the right approach, And
Yes.
so even though social work is a pretty female dominated field, finding male mentors and peers can be difficult. It will be difficult. And I think that it is now us upcoming social workers and student social workers for us to bring about, the new career path and bring about a new norm and societal norm that males can work in social work. And there's a vast majority of different jobs that male social workers and social work on a whole work in. So it's not about the one-on-one client meeting, you know, we're talking about other things that might seem manly or whatever, but it's just about, you know, how best you can um work in this profession to better help the client.
Thank you very much, Craig. Very, very insightful. You know, it's helpful to understand, you know, some of the challenges that males face. And, you know, despite the challenges, I see, based on what you have said, Craig, that, you know, we are overcoming the challenges and we are making a mark in our own spaces. But what about you, Jordan? You know, any such experiences, any unique challenges that you have experienced as a male, you know, even as you work in your own era?
All right. Yes, I have bucked up on a couple challenges. Yes. All right. So there are times when you will buck up on a client and that the
Yeah.
client doesn't want to say what is on their mind exactly. So you would have
Mm-hmm.
to probe them in a way or ask them different questions for them to reveal what they really want.
Mm.
Or if it is a sensitive issue, you might have to ask for assistance from a female social worker in a way where it's not
Mm.
something that they want to say, a sensitive issue, as in a health related issue.
Yes.
In other cases, it might be where you're just using problem solving skills, really, just to get
Mm-hmm.
out the information. But it can be done, man. It can be done.
Okay. And that's the attitude that we need to have. It can be done and it has to be done, you know, because we are in a profession, as was said earlier, helping profession. And, you know, we must do our best for our clients and to get the best results for them. So thank you, Jordan, for that contribution.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let me just ask Denardo as well, because seeing that he is actually working in guidance and counseling, you know, I would like to find out if you have encountered any such challenges or any unique challenges as a male guidance counselor transitioning into as a social worker as well.
All right. Not so much, not so much, because we create an atmosphere where we allow students to speak freely. Yes, there are times when they are one and two reluctant to speak to the male because of the sensitive issue, and the female would be more comfortable to address those
Yeah,
situations. But
yeah.
we, as professionals, we have to create that camaraderie, that relationship that will
Mm,
allow them to be comfortable speaking to you as a social worker or a guidance counselor, because we have to understand that um, we have to meet them where they are and help them to have that confidence in you as the professional, that they're when speaking to you, they can have that confidence that they can confide in you. They can trust you with that information. They can trust that you are able to assist and help where they fall short in and point them to the right direction. So I am not so much having a challenge with that. The issues or the concerns that others might be uncomfortable with the male, that
yes,
is quite understandable, because sometimes, the situation, you have to say, okay, I think the female is best to deal with this issue.
yes,
So
yes, yes.
you yourself have to understand your limits and the preference in certain cases, and how you get them to be addressed easier. So um, as social worker, and whichever field of social work one goes into, they'll have to understand and know how to make certain adjustments to address certain situations, because you yourself, it doesn't matter sometimes the gender, but you yourself can assess the situation and say, okay, I think this is not for me. Best for somebody else to deal with that. So I don't really have that issue, except for those who, you can understand the situation and say, okay, a female is best to deal with this.
All right. Thank you very much, Denada. Very interesting because, and I think the takeaway that we can get from that is that, we as male social workers have to create that environment in spite of the challenges that abound. But we have a very interesting question that I must go to that is in the chat here. Someone is asking, have you ever had to assert your masculinity in your classes? And if so, why? I want to allow Peter Jean to answer that. Have you ever had a situation where you had to assert your masculinity in a class as a student?
Well, the first thing that I would like to do is get a better understanding as to where Warren is coming from. Warren, could you maybe explain a little bit about what you mean by asserting your masculinity?
While Warren clarifies that, let me move on until we get that clarification. Then I come back to you, Peter Jean. But let's go to the dynamics. Well, we spoke to the dynamics a while ago in terms of the workplace. I think a lot of that was brought out already. In terms of how males relate to females and some of the sensitive matters that may come out. So I want to go to kind of some reflection in a sense, you know, um, as we look, at our choice as social workers, our choice to pursue social work, what advice would you have for other men who are considering social work? Let me ask Craig that question. What advice would you have to other men who are seeking to pursue social work?
Okay, I first want to say, um, I will for my answer for this question, I'll speak to you guys as men to men on a conversation at the club. Listen, gentlemen, speaking to you as one man to another. If you're thinking about doing it, do it. Join the social work profession. And I understand that society often shape this path as a female role or a female job. But let me tell you, no one can handle the types of case and unique roles and challenges in this field better than a man. Not to say no, women aren't handling themselves, but there's some roles and challenges and the uniqueness of these challenges that requires a man. The perspective, the positive influence that a man can have on these challenges and these aspects, and better how to work with the client. And we know about the different practice frameworks and the generalistic perspective. A man from who is often considered can show compassion. It brings about a new stance, to as men in social work to bring about a new change. So let's change that narrative. I mean, as a man, you bring strength that is especially needed for young men and young boys that who might need a role model, who can relate. Social work isn't just about counseling, I should say, or direct care to care. It's about leading, advocacy. It's about stepping up, making a real impactful change. And not only in person's life, but across systems and communities. And remember that it's not just one type of social work. It's social work roles ranges from frontline counseling to policy reform to public health, education, high level leadership. Your presence could change someone's life, for the better. So I want to leave with you. If you're thinking about it, do it. Don't hesitate. If you have the drive, your role, if you have the drive, do it. Your role as a male social worker is essential in this world, in this time and in this generation. You'll find it's one of the most rewarding careers out there. And remember, as Gandhi said, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in service of others.
Wow, wow, powerful, powerful. Thank you very much, Craig. If I wasn't pursuing social work, probably I would want to pursue it as a male, just based on what you have just said. Very, very potent. And you even brought out the advantage that male social workers can bring to the profession, which I believe one of the persons on has asked about. But let me go to Rashad. Answering the same question, what advice would you give to other men? And are there any advantages as well in terms of being a male social worker that you would want to put forward at this time?
All right. So give me a minute. All right. So firstly, right, your role as a man will help you to really and truly tackle issues. It's important to note that when it comes to social work, your gender does not negate the level of care you provide to clients. Although it's a female-dominated space, gender as a man, it really and truly does not negate the type of care you can provide to clients. All right. Advantages, as Craig said, perspective. Some persons are more likely to talk to me. In my practical experience, I've had successes with female clients who are not as comfortable talking to female social workers who have been in the agency for quite some time. So that right there is an advantage in and of itself, because for a male to leave from university to go into the workspace and have some sort of breakthrough with a female who has been in a place of stagnation for quite some time really shows that persons are out there waiting for us as men to take up the mantle and come into the profession and bring the change that we know we can bring to their lives. Additionally, perspectives. In my time at the university, I always talk about this. One, we're all different persons. My upbringing is completely different from Peter John's upbringing, but the way in which we interact in the classes, you cannot tell. We have a way of bringing out who we are as individuals, and he has a way of talking more than me, right? And I love to talk. But when he talks from a street perspective because he is a street man. And to me, that is one of the valuable type of persons within the social work profession, because to be able to connect with persons who are on the street is one of the biggest assets you can have as a man in the society, in the social work profession. Whereas me, I'm more logical. I read to get stuff. Of course, I have common sense, but that ability to connect with people naturally, it
Yeah.
really is an asset that he has that I work on. But again, that's his advantage in the field
Yes.
compared to my advantage in the field. So again, as Mr. Craig said, you have to lose yourself in service of others. And that's all there is to it.
All right. Profound, Russia. Thank you as well for that response. And I see where Warren rather, has placed a clarification. I don't know if Peter Jean is ready to respond to that. Yes, you can go ahead, Peter Jean. Thank you. And the question was again, have you ever been in a position where you have had to assert your masculinity, in your classroom, and I guess in any other setting where, I mean, even practicum setting or any other such in setting? Go ahead, Peter Jean.
Okay, so I would say that question is kind of it's in two parts. So in terms of within the classroom, I don't think there has ever been a case where I've ever had to overtly express any sense of masculinity or so, unless it's in jest, probably it's a case where, they make a comment or so and jokingly, we might say something and it's just an inside joke because that's how close we are in the class in terms of how we communicate. So I don't think there's ever been a case where I can say that I've had to do anything different. As Rashad said, it's a case where we kind of be who we are. We just relate it as we are. as you would have mentioned, I kind of try different hats. So while it may be a kind of more a street perspective, it's really just it's kind of like a diamond perspective. You know, it's understanding the various perspectives in the form that they come and for what they are. You know, we really can't change it, but if we can recognize it, it makes it easier for us to assist and easier for us to communicate and understand as well.
No.
So right, so I don't think I've had to do that. But as well, and as to just to note as well, I don't think I've seen any other males within the class having to do anything to distinct themselves. But in terms of approaching problems, so I would say that on my practicum, my second year practicum was at Papine High.
Mm-hmm.
I was assistant to the guidance counselor and dean of discipline.
Mm-hmm.
There were instances, especially with the young men, that I would say that the way that communication takes place is a little bit different. Um,
Yes, without
whereas,
providing too much details, you can. Yes, without providing too much details, you can explain. Yes.
yes, of course, no. So it's not too much details, but it's just in that how I may have addressed it is kind of more, you know, we might, being that it's the space that it's in, I kind of address it. I try to do it in a more informal manner, because, especially because our authority is viewed, especially when it's coming from a man. So it might
Okay.
just be a case where I call the person over, and it's generally like, "You're good," and it kind of progresses from there to the point where I might say, "What are you going over this? So everything go on?" Because I might say how they are looking or so. And they might say, "Yeah, man, sir, you know, so whatever, whatever, whatever." And it's a case where it's like, you know, it's just the how we
Communication.
predict, yeah.
Okay.
It's different at the end of the day. So that's the only thing that I would say. I mean, we still apply the same skills that we would have learned. It's just the manner and how they're applied. But everybody definitely approaches in their own way and brings what they can to the table.
Okay. All right. Understood. Understood. So, as as was said earlier by Rashad, you use the street smarts in those cases. All
Yeah,
right.
that would
Thanks
be a
for
part
that
of it.
response. Thanks for that response. Um, so I just want to throw it out though in terms of the question if any of the other panelists have had any need to do so in any situation. If so, you may say it now before we move on to our final area that we'll be looking at this afternoon. I see Denardo opening his mic.
Yes, I over the years
Yes.
I have seen where you have to be dynamic in how you approach certain things. And I have I can just go back as far as when I was in when I was studying. Being in
Yes.
the classroom, I was the only 90%, 90% or 99.99% of the classes that I had. I was the only
Mm-hmm.
male in that class. And you are I did not feel as if it was I was bombarded by the females. I was more looked upon as one of the persons who they looked on to address certain things. You understand? So I was an influential person
Yes.
at that time in the class because they always want to understand the male's perspective of certain
Mm.
things. You understand? What do you think about this? So I have to, bring that across in the profession. So it is
Yes.
not so much of to assert yourself, but
Mm-hmm.
you just put yourself in that on that platform to say, okay, from the male perspective, we understand that there are so many women in here
Yes.
who have their point of view, but the male perspective, we looked at things slightly or somewhat different from women, but we can achieve the same outcome by
Yes.
navigating different avenues. So that is what I've experienced being a male in the field and being among where the majority is female or females.
Thank you, Denardo. Thank you for that. Very, very enlightening as well, because and I have had that experience as well, when we are among many women, whether in a professional setting or even in the classroom setting, the perspective of a male is usually valued in my experience, and so they may come and ask, what do you think? And so I identify with that, as you have said. But before we go to our last series of questions, our last question for this afternoon on our program, for those who are joining us, you are with us on Threads of Change, Empowering Social Workers podcast. But we have a question here in the chat, which is very interesting, and I would like to get it from your perspective, men. Knowing that our jobs can be so demanding, how do we as male, or how do you as males prioritize self-care? What are some of the things? How do you prioritize self-care in a demanding job environment? And let me go to Craig, and hear what he has to say on that. Firstly.
So, with such a demanding job, personal care and self-care is essential to prevent burnout. So I think as women in the social profession, it is crucial for us to realize when we are approaching that breaking point and when we need to step away and have some time for ourselves. And probably we ourselves go and talk to a social worker to lean on us, take off our caps and go and lean on another one of our colleagues.
Yes.
Because we are impacting person's life on such a scale that it is really necessary for us to be on top of our game after years of training, to be on top of our games to make the most impactful and positive impact at that on the individuals
Okay,
to
very, very,
ensure well-being.
very good point. Very good point. Very, very good point. Let me hear from Peter Jean. How do you prioritize, demands? And you are doing practicum plus you are in the classroom. How do you navigate all of that, even as a, you know, social worker in training?
Right. So sorry about that. The Wi-Fi kind of messed up a little bit. Can you just repeat the question?
Yes, I was saying, how do you prioritize self-care? Given the you are practicing or you are a social worker in training, along with the fact that you are doing practicum and maybe other things. How do you prioritize self-care?
So I'm not gonna lie. One of my biggest challenges is time management, and it's something that I am working assiduously on. But I have definitely seen where sometimes one method is like scheduling what it is that you would want to do as your care. So you know that you may have a specific day where you might have less to do. You probably get home a little earlier. The traffic isn't as bad. You know that you can schedule if it's even 30 minutes of something that you find relaxing. You try and do it. For me, one of the things that I personally do is a run on Sundays. Uh, it's uh,
Mm.
it's like a 4 mile run. But that distance, for one, it kind of, I find that it helps me to build a certain level of discipline. But as well, I find it so relaxing. I have to be so focused on the running, and I run on the road, so you have to be watching for cars. You have to be so in the moment that it really
Yeah.
kind of takes you away from things that might weigh on the mind. As well, I love music, I love writing. So these are other forms that I kind of use as a means just to get away from it. And for those, I do it wherever I get the chance. I could be on the bus going home, anywhere. But one of the things that I would love to note is sleep. So one of the best ways that we can probably recover and have our self-care is to sleep. So
Yeah.
prioritizing sleep similarly to setting when you would want to relax. You set the time when you want to go to sleep. And maybe it's not going to be the 8 hours or even the 6 hours on a particular day, but as best as you can, you try and maximize how much you can get so that your brain, your body can recover and you stay prepared for the next day.
Wow. Thanks very much, Peter John. Very, very, very instructive because you mentioned exercise, but critically you also mentioned sleep, which is essential. It's very essential. So thank you for that response. But as we look to wrap up this afternoon, I want to quickly, briefly get a perspective from all our guests, on this question. Are there any changes that you would like to see in social work education or the profession or the professional setting rather to support more males entering social work? So let me repeat it. Are there any changes that you would like to see within the social work education or professional settings to support more males coming into social work? Let me start with Jordan for that.
All right. In a professional setting, it would be nice to wipe out the myth that it is a female dominant workspace. Yeah. More diversity in the offices.
Yes.
A good balance, basically.
Okay.
And some will catch on, some might not, and realize what they really want to do or so forth. But it would be nice to get a nice diversity in the office, half male, half female. That would be good.
All right. Thanks very much for that, Jordan. Getting rid of some of the stereotypes would help in changing that. What about
Yes.
you? What about you, Rashad? Is there anything that you see that would need to be done, whether educationally or professionally, so that they are to support males entering the profession?
All right. All right. So one thing that stands out right now is to basically clearly explain the job expectations of social workers so persons can understand that it's not a female only type of work so persons can see the value in it. I mean, right now, as professional social workers are not as valued right across the board for everybody. And as a man coming into that profession, having to deal with that, with not having that appreciation and just being a man working in the space, it really can dampen your mood to really and truly work towards effecting change. I feel like just advocating for, the knowledge that social worker requires me. I mean, there have been some talk about it, social work, a forgotten population of men in social work and all of that, but not many persons are exposed to that type of literature or that type of understanding that we really are needed in the space. So that's one thing I have to say.
All right. Thank you, Rashad. Very, very, very important point made there. I want to hear also from Leonardo quickly. Do you have any take on that as well? How can we get more men into the field of social work? Is there anything that can be done?
All right. We first have to understand the duty of a social worker. And the duty of a social worker, it not so much as the profession of a social worker, but it's so much as the duty of humans, human nature of caring. And to put it in perspective, it is for society to understand that social work is so dynamic that it addresses every area of human life, social human life, physical, mental, spiritual, every aspect of a person's life. Now, it cannot categorize a person's life whether a female is fitting to do this or it's a female role to do that. It is important that we look at social work as a professional field where you address every aspect of someone's life. So therefore, we can't just put a narrative around it to say, just like how persons would have put a narrative around nurse. It's more like a female thing to be a nurse. No, it is as important as having a man in the household, such as how you have a woman. Yes, there are different roles of the man in the household, and there's different role in the household for a woman. But coming together, it makes the household complete. So therefore, you can't have one overshadowing the other and say this is the role of you. You're supposed to do this, and you're not allowed to come into this field. No, we should understand that it is leveled. We're looking out for one another is concerned. And it is known as the helping profession. So therefore, help is what we looked upon first. Different ways of helping individuals. So if we're going to categorize or genderize how we can help each other, we have a society going down a steep hill and not coming up back. So we should look at that from the perspective of humanity, helping humanity to become better people, better life, a better world.
Wow. Thank you, Denardo, for that. So emphasizing the ethos of social work, what social work is all about, helping our fellow man. And I guess that would also help persons to come in and not be so much concentrated on whether it is a female dominated or male dominated space, but to focus on the core essence of social work. Very, very, very potent point, Leonardo. Thank you for that. But I'll allow Peter John and Craig to just wrap up with this question. What is one thing that you would like listeners to take away from the conversation today about men in social work? Let me go with you first, Craig. What is one thing, quickly, that you would want listeners to take away from this whole conversation that we have had on men in social work?
If it is one thing I want our listeners to understand, the vast responsibility and the major different roles that social work spans across, and understand that it's not, as my colleague said, it is not a female only role. It is a gender neutral role. And it is crucial for men to step into this role and remove the societal stigma across men in social work and understand that men can have a great and a significant impact in social work working with clients, because at the end of the day, social workers are to ensure the well-being of clients. So it is us as social workers, as social work students, to make sure that it is well adequate and provided services for everybody, because we talk about inclusivity so much. It is crucial for us to actually implement inclusivity, you know.
All right. Thank you very much, Craig. Thank you for that. Inclusivity in terms of not just about a particular gender, but just everyone involved in the process. Thank you. Peter Jean, what is your word on that? What should the final takeaway be for listeners about this whole matter of men in social work?
So I'll express two very quickly, one to the general public, one to our social workers that are here on the video. So I would want to say that we are needed. It's not just a case where we're just trying to make spaces for jobs. We're not just trying to get people working. We are needed and we are vital to the field. As you would have heard discussed, there are the various benefits that come with being a male in social work, whether it is the discussions that take place or the varying ideas that come forth to assist. So please, if you feel that kind of compelling nature, or you feel compelled after this conversation or anything that sparked you, take a look into it and see if you'd be interested. And to our social workers, we cannot help if we do not take care of ourselves. As we would have mentioned, rest, the self-care, whether it is and also remember to stay around the persons that you're comfortable with, stay around your friends, because these are who will help us in our times when it's a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter John. Very instructive there, and you sound like you have been in the field for many years. And so we thank you very much for those two very important points. It's particularly the last point, we cannot care for others if we are not caring for ourselves. Very, very important point to make. But I want to thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Threads of Change, Empowering Social Workers podcast, where social workers come together to inspire, empower, and effect change. I want to thank all of my guests, Peter Jean, Dante, Denardo, Jordan, and Craig. And I also want to thank and acknowledge the institutions that these young men are from. The UWI, University of the West Indies, the Portmore Community College, the Montego Bay Community College, and yes, I believe I've covered all of the institutions. I want to just highlight the institutions. We also want to thank our podcast team, Nordia Lyons, Rashad Ford, Tessie Scott, Drs. Sharon McKenzie and Joanna Simpson. And a special thank you goes out to Sivonia Lewis for her invaluable assistance during the initial conceptualization of this podcast. And we are in season 2, and this is episode 7. So this podcast is going on strong. So thanks to you, our treasured community, for joining us and sharing your views. I believe that it has been our enriching discussion with our men in social work today. I'm sure all of us would have garnered a lot from this podcast, and your feedback fuels our mission to spread awareness and create positive change. So keep on providing those feedback, and we will be delighted to act upon them. So if you have any questions, stories, or topics that you would like us to cover on Threads podcast, Threads of Change podcast, reach out to us on our social media handles. As I mentioned earlier, you can reach out via the Instagram account, which is UWI Mona Social Work Unit. And we just thank you once more for joining us this afternoon for this very insightful discussion with men in social work. And I just want to leave us with this, because together, let us elevate the status of social work and drive positive change in our communities. We can and we must do it together. So thank you once more for joining us on Threads of Change, Empowering Social Workers podcast. And I guess you will see us again next time. Blessings.
I know that we kind of stepped off as well, Roshane, but I feel like it would have been a displeasure. I didn't answer the question earlier that was asked about the reactions. I just wanted to thank my parents for, the openness and freeness in which they allowed me to approach the course. There wasn't much apprehension or, disregard or mistreatment towards it. So thank you very much. Wouldn't feel good if I did leave and never say it.
All right. All right. Thanks for that. Thanks for that. Thanks for that.
And them there too.
Still a man, whether him wear jacket and tie or him walk barefoot. The only difference is whether him good or evil. Oh, a man is still a man, whether him rich or poor, black or white for sure. The only difference is whether him good or evil. Lots of different people in the street, wiping car glass window. This is what they do day to day, just to get a little food to eat. Oh yeah. And then you have others wearing suit and tie, work a good 9 to 5, and take it for granted that they're living a better life. I say the color of our skin don't mean a thing if we do good or commit to sin. We're all judged by the same, and Jah is his holy name. So let's all be aware of how we entertain angels unaware, for angels do move through man, whether here or from there. A man is still a man, whether him wear jacket and tie or him walk barefoot. The only difference is whether I'm good or evil. Oh, a man is still a man, whether him rich or poor, black or white for sure. The only difference is whether I'm good or evil.
Never mind class, creed, or race. All the wealth of a man. Be sure we're living life, we treat all men right. For we are all the same in the Most High sight.
A man is still a man, whether him wear jacket and tie or him walk barefoot. The only difference is whether I'm good or evil. Oh yeah. A man is still a man, whether him rich or poor, black or white for sure. The only difference is whether I'm good or evil. Hear these words again. Lots of different people live in the streets and wipe car glass window. This is what they do day to day, just to get a little food to eat. And then you have others wearing suit and tie, work a good 9 to 5, and take it for granted that they're living a better life. A man is still a man, whether him wear jacket and tie or him walk barefoot. The only difference is whether I'm good or evil. A man is still a man, whether him rich or poor, black or white for sure. The only difference is whether I'm good or evil. A man is still a man.
Man is still a man.
A man is still a man.
Man is still a
A
man.
man is still a man.
Man is still a man.
Only difference is whether I am good or evil. A man is still a man.
Man is still a
A
man.
man is still a man.
Man is still a
A
man.
man is still a man.
Man is still a man.
Only difference is whether I am good or evil. A man is still a man. A man is still a man. Yeah. A man is still a man, whether him wear jacket and tie or him walk barefoot. The only difference is whether I'm good